Welcome to another episode of Next.io Spotlight. Today I'm with Gabriel Kolawole of Hub88. He's the Director of Product at Hub88. Welcome, Gabriel, to Spotlight.
Nice to meet you, Stuart. Thanks for having me. Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you too. And you're leading product at Hub88 at a time when platforms are shifting quite fast. Digital transformation, AI being a hot topic of conversation. I'm sure you've never heard the end of it over the last few years, in fact. But I have a question for you about operators and how they're thinking about platforms today. What's changing in their mindset when they think about platforms, and what's their expectations?
I like the way you opened that up. Yes, this is one of the coolest times to be alive. Software became cheaper all of a sudden because right now all of the great things that AI could do. But far beyond that, if we take a step back and just look at it historically, what has been the yardstick that operators measure platforms with in this case? It's usually what's the size of your portfolio, how many game providers do you have, or how much content could you give me? This is what operators used to ask before. But slowly, as we can see right now, the narrative is changing because it's all about speed right now. Who gets the market first in that case? And this is a kind of like a change in the direction where we can see operators are asking critical questions right now. Can this platform support me to go live quicker? Can it support the decisions I need to make, and etc.?
I suppose, am I right in thinking that expectation of speed to market has been propelled by advancements in AI, the democratization of AI as well, everyone being able to access an LLM at their fingertips and getting fast answers or even fast product? Are you seeing that? Is that the reason why? Is there a lot of noise in AI as well? Am I misinterpreting things with AI?
Actually, it feels like it's like starting to walk when a baby would try to walk for the first time. It's going to be a lot of wobble at first until you pick pace properly. But right now, I agree, yes, there's a lot of noise at the moment, and there are very few and real stuff in that sense, basically. If you're talking about the real stuffs are quite narrow. They are boring. You can't even almost describe them in this case as such. So the real stuff would mean things like ticket deflection. In this case, people asking that question in terms of okay, can this platform really support my operations in this case? The noise is almost AI this, AI that. So I think it's like a very tiny little line. Most of what we see when it comes to noise right now are just rebrands of what already exists in this case. So the single rule of thumb is always does it change the manual execution, or does it transform an existing operational process that requires an human in the loop today, or does it support the decision for you to classify it as a real AI initiative?
If we filter out that noise, what do you think really matters? When it comes to your product, your platform, and the expectations of operators, what really matters?
I would say what really matters at the end of the day is how do we support, first of all, the speed to market? How can we get them? How quickly can we get them to go live in this case and get them closer to making their first dollar if they're just starting out, or making a revenue out of a new market or a new venture that they're starting? If we go beyond that, the next question would be okay, how do we support their operations, or how do they leverage us as a platform to really help them be successful in their day-to-day? And if we go beyond that, the next question would be how do we support the overall turnaround of their venture in this case, commercially? How do we support them commercially to really be successful, becoming a true business partner?
What we're seeing as well is a shift from aggregation to automation and then to intelligence. But often that reality is quite uneven. Where do you think we are in that journey of aggregation to automation and then finally to intelligence?
Very interesting, actually. I would say if we start I like to think about it like this. If we start from aggregation itself, I think that's the common baseline right now. Everybody has access to be able to do integrations, connect multiple partners to different studios and provider. That's like the baseline. It's almost like a commodity. Everybody has that in this case. If we think about automation, I think automation is getting there as well. But in that sense, like it's still the experiences are not consistent in the sense that not all the entire pipeline of the journey of an operator or a player experience has been automated. So I will say categorically we are stuck right now between aggregation and automation. And here's why I say so. So today, if you think about automation, you still have aggregators or suppliers that are still delivering content via spreadsheets, manual processes in that sense. So if you think about it from the automation standpoint, what we've gotten right today is content delivery, meaning that content can go automatically. I think more than half of the industry should be doing that, except for some legacy systems in that sense, basically. Basic reporting. Right now, reports have been surfaced. Almost everybody has a back office or some portal or some mechanism, transport that they can use to surface and deliver reports. But overall, if you talk about intelligence right now, when you have a platform that tells you what to do, I think this is where we are striving to be in this case, basically. That's the destination. But overall, the important thing is like a lot of data is required to really have an intelligent platform in that sense. A platform will not be intelligent based on thin data. So if we take a step back, then we ask ourselves the question, what's now the rule of thumb? The rule of thumb would be to get the operator onto the platform, embed them with experiences, and then you can layer intelligence on top. So in a single line, we are stuck right now between the aggregation and automation phase, but we are heading to that North Star of intelligence.
Wonderful. How would you actually help the operators get to that stage of intelligence? What are you doing on the ground to help that?
So right now, I would say like it's a destination. Intelligence is a destination, but piece by piece, we are piecing all of the initiatives together in this case, and that's what you will see mostly in all of the features that we are trying to roll out this year to set the foundation for getting there. We are still very far away from that, but we are shaping features and products that we actually after intelligent platform. And some of that today is like if you think about Hub AI, we started out as a simple knowledge-based retrieval system, like just simple RAG system to deflect tickets in this case, more from a use case of integration. This was the first intention that we have. Okay, like let's try this out. This is the first thing we can do. An AI that can deflect technical integration support tickets and just be the go-to one-stop place to answer questions. There is no need for your developers to wait overnight to get an integration question answered. There is no need for them to start Googling, like, but thank God there's AI right now. You can almost even throw the API documentation there. But let's say someone still gets stuck in this case. You don't need to wait because the AI right now can generate codes for you, code snippets based on the documentation itself. That was what we started out. But right now, with more data and more intelligence, we are now surfacing more actionable insights to operators. But essentially, our North Star is to be able to have that fully intelligent platform. Where we are today, we are shipping pieces of those building blocks out to the operators themselves.
You raise a good point about having a knowledge base, supporting those requests and tickets that get raised, and that makes me think of onboarding actually, and having that experience, a good experience of onboarding, and usually during the onboarding process, it's a lot about knowledge building, but also about understanding your customer and understanding their needs, and then giving them a platform that works for them, for their nuanced business or idiosyncratic state of affairs. So with that onboarding process, naturally it can be quite slow, and because of that, it affects what you said about speed to market. It takes time to build that knowledge and work with customers, and as a result of that, it impacts revenue. because of that lack of speed to market sometimes. What would you say was broken about the onboarding process?
Quite quite interesting one. So let's put it this way. In general, like if I understand you correctly, Stu, the question you're asking me is like, why even think about transforming what onboarding used to be? If I would take it that way, and I'll approach it from that side. So if you think about it in this case, like first from the angle of like, let's start from why. First and first, a lot of my personal take, our industry has to some degree legacy systems. Let me put it that way. Systems that started out from way long when the market was small, when the demands or the player behaviors is not so as complex as it is today, when integrations were very straightforward in that sense. So if you think about it from that angle, if I'm an operator within this space, by operator like an aggregator, so to speak, like just to be clear, or a studio or someone, what is the reward for me to reinvent my onboarding process? It's not glamorous in this case, basically, and it's expensive for me to re-architect the entire legacy system I've built in that manner. That's one. Secondly, if you think about it again, in this case, it's about misaligned incentives. Misaligned incentives in the sense that you have platforms that take setup cost. That is the cost of integrating you to the platform. So what's the incentive then if integrations are faster? It means service revenue is going to decline. So from that point of view right now, for us, like the way we think about it, we don't have any of those conflicts in this case, basically. Built naturally towards cloud technologies from day one, operationally digitized in so many ways, and also the business model that we sort of like follow in terms of like purely transactional based in this case, whichever model in that regard, puts us in the position whereby, the customer going live faster is better for us and for them, because a day between signing the contract and going live, that the customer is not making money, we are not moving towards our positive interest and the joint interest of ourselves and the customer as well. And overall, if you think about it, secondarily, in this case, there's much more reason why to transform that part of the experience of getting someone onto the platform. It's also about operational efficiency, because from an operational efficiency point of view, if you had huge backlog of onboarding to do in this case, why essentially will people wait on the queue? That's revenue lost in this case, all the time to make revenue. That impact is, you're not going to make any impact there. Nobody is making money. Both teams are paying people to get that job done at the same time. And at the same time, if you think about it, manual questionnaires mean like data silos and a lot of duplicates within the process that still goes across to multiple teams, from compliance to the tech ops teams to the integrations team. They all collect one manual data information, which is almost the same if you combine it together across all steps in this case. And more than even, if you even think about it, you're just throwing extra bodies at work as that queue keeps growing in this case. So why not automate all of that completely in this case and remove completely the manual handoffs between the different teams? Everybody get the same thing and everything is completely transformed and orchestrated behind the scenes in a seamless manner for both ourselves and the operators.
You mentioned, legacy systems, and I suspect that a lot of companies have many legacy systems that Hub88 can solve with a new platform that can be integrated into their business. But have you come across people that have these legacy systems, but they have almost like a fear of implementing a solution because for one reason or another, they have a fear around implementation, whether that's because of a fear that it's going to interrupt their existing processes, or maybe they're worried that it's not going to work, that they invest in it and then at the end of the day, it doesn't work. Have you encountered these type of people, and what has been your answer to them when they come with these fears?
Personally, on a personal ground, I would say like I've not seen that like first touch in this case. Of course, I mean like going under the hood to see what the system really looks like. But from like a general perception point of view, in this case, in general, I think the restriction, or like so to speak, like the friction in terms of like change from where systems are or platforms are or infrastructure are today to where they should be to enable even faster growth in future is almost based on like the simple fact that we all know that change is difficult, and most times when you think about it in general, from like a software, even think about a software service or platform, whatever you're using in this case, it's just a question of like, are you ready to make the investment? Because that investment means like zero. You're not making money. You're not building anything. That's not glamorous in this case. So I believe like all of that restriction or like the friction to change is centered around that mindset in that case that, okay, like I said, it's not glamorous. Nobody is going to give you an award for rebuilding your pipeline. The question is like, what's your North Star? What do you want to go to? Do you want to move faster and be highly competitive? In this case, to getting customers live fast and you benefit and common joint interest of revenue and profit.
The word change that you used there, and I'm curious because you also mentioned Hub AI earlier. Um, what what were you trying to change, or what are you looking to change with Hub AI? What are you looking to change? What problem existed that you are looking to change and solve?
So at first, if you think about it, most of the time, I will start from integration because integration was like the bedrock of this product at the first inside. So during integrations, the manual way, before we have an automated pipeline called one-click onboarding in code. The manual way means that the technical, I'll paint the scenario like this. The technical operations team, first of all, someone needs to go and create a chat in a third-party application, call it like Skype, or Skype is dead right now, maybe Teams or similar. People are in the chat. Someone needs to send over like a documentation saying like, okay, like please fill in this questionnaire, which currencies you want, your endpoints, and all this kind of stuff. Someone takes that in this case. And the next thing would be that someone needs to set up some environment where you put in all of this information. They need to pass in their contacts at that point in time as well. And all of this requires back and forth, meaning that the form was sent to someone, and input is expected, and something needs to happen for the next thing to go further. That one thing could be either setting up like the environment, passing operator IDs back to them, enabling them, and provisioning like end-to-end test or UAT test environment for them. This was one of the things that we wanted to remove completely. The problem that we wanted to solve with Hub AI, and it was like a sweet spot for us, like bringing AI into this part, was the fact that we want to remove any form of query or anything that could have turned into a support ticket in the first place. We want to deflect it with this. And we achieved that because at the very start, we were able to deflect up to about 25% support ticket from just plain knowledge base that we have. And when we move further on top of that right now, we now start asking ourselves the question based on even saying the usage patterns. At least there are more minimum 300 sessions per month. And some of the questions that people started asking is like, okay, like for instance, for a supplier, because we are not only looking at operators alone. We launched the product about a year ago called Up Connect, that has operator zone and supplier zone. For the suppliers, this is just like we giving them a very high level insight into what their distribution looks like with our partners in this case. So we've seen a scenario whereby someone has raised the question of like, how can I be successful on the Hub88 platform? That was a literal question. And as at this time, there was still a gap from where we are with Hub AI as just being a RAG system. That is just looking up documentation and answering questions based on that, which almost is the common starting point for most AI systems. So the next layer was like, okay, let's enable people be able to take actionable steps by surfacing real insight based on their actions to them. So the initial problem we wanted to solve was deflecting support tickets and let people answer the question, let AI help them and drive them through their integration. Then the second problem now started from, like, if you think about it commercially, in this case, if we don't provide an insight that is a transport or a medium or an interface for people to ask questions about their data or to retrieve information and insight, it means it becomes either a support case or an admin from the commercial side, an admin exercise from the commercial side, that because that question will go directly to the AM. Can you help me get this report? Can you help me do this? Can you help me do that? But right now, the AI can answer most of that questions in this case. Apart from the tables and the dashboard, it's surfacing what is between the gaps, what the human eyes wouldn't have seen normally in this case.
So my next question is, where do we go from here? You've built Hub88 as a very successful platform for answering queries and those tickets that are raised and giving really fantastic support. Where do we go from here, in the sense that could we get to a place where Hub88 is not only answering the questions and the queries that the human has to come up with and identify as a problem? Could we get to a state where Hub88 is identifying intelligently, with that intelligence layer, identifying a problem that the user, the human, doesn't even know about, and then it starts to guide the operator? Is that a future that we can expect?
Absolutely. That's the destination. Like I mentioned when you raised the question of like the trajectory of the entire space right now, going from aggregation to automation and finally intelligence. I mentioned that intelligence, that's the sweet spot, and that's where we are going. The pieces right now to get us there, exactly at this point in time, is Hub88, Page Insight, and all these initiatives around that. Yes, we can get to that spot whereby it's no longer a question of like reacting to a human's query or an input from an human, but rather being proactive in this case, that is pushing insight even without being asked in that case. And essentially, like everything that we want to build for the remainder of the year right now, they answer that question essentially. I'll give you some of the use cases like around what we are thinking about here in this case. One use case, for instance, is imagine I as an operator right now, I log in into the portal or the partner facing portal, and the next thing I can see is like, the churn rate of your players on your Hex brand went up 21% last week in this case. Here are the games or the games categories that the players within that group was actively engaging with before they drop off. See these promotion templates that work with a similar player segment that you can apply to reactivate them back. Full stop. That's the North Star. That's the ideal intelligent platform that we're looking at into the future. And we are slowly getting there brick by brick by layering all the solutions together.
Very exciting future, really exciting future. And to get there, of course, you need a lot of data, and then an understanding of the data and a good interpretation of the data. What's missing today? What are the biggest missed opportunities that operators are missing out on as a result of maybe poor use of data, poor ingestion of data, or a misunderstanding of the data? Where are we at with that? What are the missed opportunities there regarding the data?
I would say the missed opportunity right now, like we identified earlier, like to make any meaningful intelligence out of data, the data must be dense, a lot of data. So the first drawback at this point in time is like the silos that exist. The silos that exist, meaning that let's say platform direct actions from players, let's say depositing, withdrawing, bonus acceptance, maybe to some degree we can infer that in this case it's on one part, is on the side of the operator. So intercession activities, that is moving from one vertical of content to another, in this case on the other side is on the platform side, which we as aggregators we can see across in this case. So That's one challenge at this point in time. Whoever can combine all of this together, definitely like you have a lot in your hand as well in this case. So market inferencing as well in this case, that what is happening within your, how to call it, like what is happening within your specific market as well. In that sense, basically. And as well, if you can see, let's learn something from the negative side as well. What we can learn from the negative side is like the players or the ring of players that go from casino to go and defraud them. In this case, they are also leaving footprint back as well. Who can see all of this information? It's through the platforms in this case, because most likely if they hit you, they likely hit other 5 other brands that are working within the same market that you are operating in this case. So the silos are there. The opportunities lie between deep player activities and player playing behavior patterns that can easily be spotted by just like looking at your own data alone, but across overall. In this case, I think there's a lot of opportunity there, specifically around player behavior and how they interact with different content and the actions they take with incentives as well.
Siloed kind of data and platforms is it makes me think about the plethora of opportunities and platforms that also Hub88 offer as well, and that connected ecosystem that you have. And you mentioned North Stars around the operator's North Star. What would you say is Hub88's North Star when it comes to your entire ecosystem?
So 3 things. First, we want to get partners live as quick as possible in this case. Second, we want to equip them with the tools to help them run a successful business in that case. And third, we want to be true business partners by surfacing real commercial intelligence that will drive and transform whatever they are doing. So let's say they are doing Hex before. In this case, we want to give them the capability and all the tools necessary and all the connections, even partnerships that we enable them to be able to drive ahead and make that Hex 2X.
For any operators watching or listening, what would you say to them? To stay competitive, what should they do over the next 12 months to remain competitive, to achieve that speed to market, which I think relates to competitiveness? What would you say to them?
I would say, like, overall, like, the sweet spot, first of all, let's start from infrastructure is very important, I would say, because that's one of the underestimated stuff well within the industry. The speed of your wallet system is relative to the overall impact you can make in terms of like your GGR and your overall turnover. If you fix that, and also like the quality of data, cleaning up data, investing in a lot of like data cleansing and data transformation tools will definitely help. And I think those 2 things combined together is a catalyst for a successful casino business. So in 2026, I think overall infrastructure should definitely be a focus, and also investing into data, because data is going to fuel the next layers of transformation in any digital business.
And it's interesting, Gabriel, that you didn't mention AI in that answer, and I think that's a very astute and very, very prudent answer, not to just use a buzzword and focus entirely on AI, because I'm sure that a lot of people watching that aren't as technically savvy would think to themselves, let's just invest aggressively in AI. But what if their architecture layer is missing or weak? It's very interesting that a technical expert is saying, hang on, breathe and don't focus just on AI. Would you say that's a fair observation?
I would say that that's fair in this case, because it is a trap in overall. If you think about it, AI is a magnifier of everything that you already have in this case. So it's not there to close a gap for you in general, but rather to magnify what you have already in this case. So let's say, for instance, you are doing good already, you have fantastic inputs across all your data pipelines and whatnot in this case. Of course, leveraging AI on top of that, you're going to shine. And that's why I deliberately concentrated on data, because at the end of the day, AI was still hacked based on data. In this case, it's just a smart pattern matcher overall.
Well said. Well said. Gabriel, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for enlightening me and our listeners on Hub88, but also the future that holds for us in terms of the technical future that we have to expect and we have to prepare for in prudent ways. So thank you very much for your time, and it's been great having you on Spotlight.
Thank you very much, Stu. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed doing this. Thank you.